INFJs and autistic INFJs, welcome back to my channel. So have you ever felt like you're searching endlessly for your purpose, and no matter how hard you look for that answer, it keeps slipping right through your fingers? I think many INFJs can relate to this, and autistic INFJs searching for purpose. If you're an INFJ, you've probably felt that deep need to live a life that feels full of meaning, a real meaningful life, a life that truly reflects who you are. But here's the thing, what if the reason you haven't found your purpose isn't because you're lost? Which is interesting because it really does feel like we're lost at times, doesn't it? But what if it's because you've been looking in the wrong place? That's something to think about, isn't it? Today, I want to share a different perspective around this. What if your purpose isn't something that you find, but something you uncover by embracing who you already are? It's quite an interesting perspective. When I thought about this, I thought this is a great way to explain how to find purpose. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. My name's Trina. I'm an INFJ and I'm also autistic. I created this channel with hopes of helping people like myself. I also wanted somewhere to share resources, things that have helped me, and I know that they can help other people like myself. So don't forget to check out the resource section in the description of this video. There's links that I've provided. I also help INFJs and autistic INFJs heal self-love through classes, community, and coaching. So welcome to my channel. If you're returning, I'm glad you came back. I hope that you all find this helpful, and I'm very grateful for you all. I invite you, if you haven't yet, to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate the support. Okay, before we get going, I have registration still open for our second date of the INFJ meet and greet. It's a connection circle, virtual, casual, very laid back. If you want a place where you can go and meet other INFJs, people like yourself, and feel comfortable, this is the place to do it. I know INFJs can be very hard to meet, and it's a struggle for many of us. I know I went my entire life until I was in my 40s before I met another INFJ, and I met them online. So I thought I would create a space where we can all just come together and mingle. And that's what it is. We have a lot of fun. We meet for about an hour to an hour and a half. My first date sold out, so I opened up a second date because many of you were asking if I was opening up another date. So I did. The link is in the description of this video. All right, enough about that. Let's get into what we're talking about, finding purpose. I know for me, this was a huge struggle. I questioned my purpose all the time once I became an adult. Not so much when I was a child. When I was a little INFJ, it didn't really cross my mind, probably because I didn't really know what purpose meant. So it wasn't until maybe my late teens and then into my adult life, I really started questioning it. And it really became a huge question, I know, about my mid-30s. And it was a huge struggle for me. Now, one common narrative, it's a traditional narrative that goes around that most people live by. And we play this narrative over and over and over again. And we believe that purpose is a specific job, a role, a life mission, right? That's kind of, I'm going to say, what society says purpose is, right? It's like a job, your life mission, a role that you step into. We get caught up in overthinking this. When we believe this narrative, we get caught up in overthinking. And when that starts, we'll start beating ourselves up about it because we're looking for a singular, perfect answer, right? Because we're believing this narrative, a traditional narrative that goes on, that this is what purpose is. And for us, all it does is it causes lots of rumination and causes us to feel even worse about ourselves. I know it did for me. The thing to remember is purpose isn't a destination we reach or a role that we step into. Isn't that interesting? So that's completely opposite what the traditional narrative of purpose is, right? It isn't a destination or a role that we step into. For an INFJ, purpose is a feeling of alignment between who you are and how you live. This is crucial, and I'm going to repeat that again. Purpose is a feeling of alignment between who you are and how you live. I needed to fully understand this to be able to find my purpose. It's about connecting our inner values, passions, unique traits with our daily actions. About fully embracing who we are and live daily authentically with all of that, not worrying about all the outside noise, if that makes any sense to you. When we are in alignment, purpose flows naturally. It's not from external expectations, but from living authentically and honoring what lights us up. When we start following those things that we really want to do, that brings us joy, that brings us a sense of fulfillment, and we allow ourselves to go and do that, we start finding our purpose. It's not about chasing something outside of ourselves. It's about uncovering the truth within and letting it guide our path. And it's really neat how this happens. The foundation of purpose, I can't stress enough how important this is to being able to find our purpose. It starts with self-love. It allows us to embrace our authentic self instead of trying to fit in to the molds that we were never ever meant to fit into. That's self-love. It's simply an extension of our unique gifts and passions that we already carry within. So it's really interesting that INFJs, we tend to really struggle with self-love and self-acceptance. I know I did, and I've said this many times in other videos that I hated myself so bad that I couldn't even look in the mirror. We struggle with that, and we also struggle with finding purpose, and those two things are connected. We need to have a degree or a level, I'm going to say level, a level of self-love to be able to find our purpose. Self-love, self-acceptance. Self-acceptance empowers us to recognize that our unique traits are our purpose, our unique traits. So think about this for a second. Those qualities that you have been criticized for, okay? Think about it. So maybe it's the sensitivity. You were called a crybaby, or you needed to grow thicker skin, or you were made feel bad about yourself, about who you are because of the sensitivity. Maybe it was the introspection. Maybe it was depth, which I guess kind of goes with introspection. Or maybe it was your intuition because you would have feelings or you could predict an outcome and the people around you didn't like that. So they stomped on you, because when people can't understand something, they automatically just don't like it and they try to stomp on it, right? So think about it. Those things that you were criticized for, these are actually strengths. I know, you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? You're crazy. I hate those things about myself. The story's coming up on my brain, so I need to share it with you. A few years ago now, I can't remember how many years ago, and it really doesn't matter anyway, I did a strengths assessment with a friend of mine. It was the Clifton Strength Assessment. She's a practitioner or whatever you would call it for that. And I wanted to find my strengths because I was really, really working on my self-love. And in order to work on self-love and get to the degree that I wanted, I really had to acknowledge that I had strengths. Now, growing up, and most of my adult life, I was flat out told that I had nothing to offer, that I was boring, I was not creative, I was this or I wasn't that. And I mean, those stories go on and on and on. So I believed that I had no strengths. I had nothing to offer. I had no gifts. So I did this assessment because, for one, it was a friend of mine and I trusted her. And for two, I was curious. When I got the results of the assessment that I did, I was very disappointed. My top 5 or 6, it was the top 6 strengths that came in, 5 or 6, I can't remember now. It was quite a few years back. They were the top things that I hated about myself. They were the top things that I tried to get rid of about myself and would beat myself up about it because they brought attention to me and people would point them out and oftentimes they would criticize me. I did not understand that people will notice things that you're good at, and a lot of things we are good at as INFJs, people don't understand. And like I just said not that long ago in this video, when people don't understand something, they are naturally afraid of it. They don't like it and they try to poo all over your parade. That's just human nature, right? We can't control that, so we just gotta ignore it. I mean, that's them sorting things out within. Anyway, I had to tell you that story because my strengths were the things that I hated about myself. So when I ask you to think about those qualities that you were criticized for, they are probably going to be things that you don't like about yourself. that are your strengths. So, take a little bit of a minute to let that soak in and wrap your brain around it, because it took me 2 days. I was very disappointed, and when I opened it, and I remember thinking, oh man, really? I hate all of this about myself, and now these are my strengths. And I closed my computer, and I didn't go back into it probably for about 2 days. And the only reason I opened it back up again was because we were doing a workshop together where we were going to go over these strengths, and I wanted to be prepared because I was supporting my friend, so I only did it for her, and it was the best choice I could have ever made for myself to do that. So once I realized how those strengths worked and I actually had to verbally give myself permission to lean into them, my life changed incredibly and I found my purpose. So I just had to tell you that story because I think it was relevant for today's video. And maybe it was only relevant in my brain and you're wondering where I was going with that. But anyways, that's what it was. So how do we start? Wait, 1 second, I'm just reviewing. There's one point that I want to mention here before we get into my next point of learning how to build self-love. I am going to go through that. I'm going to give you some tips on how to build self-love. But before we get into that, when we lean into these qualities that we were criticized for and accept them, or sort of accept them, if you can't accept them, then just get curious and be like, okay, let's just try this. Let's just give it a try and see where it takes me, right? Just get curious. When we do this, they become like breadcrumbs. Okay, think of Hansel and Gretel. That's the picture I'm getting in my brain right now of when they left the breadcrumbs so they could find their way back home. When we lean into these qualities, that's what it's like. It's dropping breadcrumbs. And when we start seeing those breadcrumbs, when we'll pick them up and we keep following from one quality to the next, it leads us to our purpose. It's really neat how it works. It really is. So how do we start building self-love? Because I said this is the foundation to purpose. And I know for me, quite a few years back, I would have been like, okay, that's fine. How do I build self-love? Because I hated who I was. I have three activities that you can do to start this. Again, it's not something that happens overnight. It does take work, but we can do work. And if you really want to find your purpose, it's worth the work. But not only that, it's really fun work because you really get to learn who you are. You get acquainted with yourself. And for an INFJ, that's huge because lots of us have no clue who we even are, right? Okay, so the first thing that I thought would be fun to do, and I know works really well, is create a self-love inventory. So what I want you to do is write down every single day, only takes a moment, write down what you loved about yourself that day. It could only be one thing. If you're just starting out and you were like me, where you absolutely despised who you were and you thought you were a useless piece of skin, because that's how I felt, this can be a challenge to even find one thing, but find one thing. It could be simply the socks that you're wearing today. You really like them because they have pictures of your dog that just passed away. Whatever. That's a pair of socks that I have. They're my favorite socks. Or it could be that you cut back on your sugar today. Or it could be you love that part of you because you had the willpower to do that. It could be something as simple as, I got up and I got dressed and I was there for my family today. It could be something as simple as that. Just pick something that you loved about yourself today, or if you're not to the point of love, it could even be liked about yourself today. A little bit more than you did yesterday, okay? And I want you to write it down. And I want you to write down also one thing that you did today that lit you up, that made you feel joy, that gave you energy mentally and maybe even physically while you were doing it. Want you to write that down. And again, it could be something simple as listening to your favorite song and singing with it and dancing and not caring who's watching. That's key. Write it down. What lit you up? Because we're going to read it after. Once you start doing this, it gets easier and easier and easier to find those things that you love about yourself and find things that lit you up. And eventually what we're doing is rewiring our brain to look for those things that we love about ourselves instead of focusing on the things that we hate about ourselves. And we're training our brain to find those things that bring us joy, that light us up. It takes off the top of my head, I want to say like 21 days, 20 days to develop a habit. I say a month. Give it a month to develop a habit. So we want to retrain all of those little networks in our brain that we have trained right now to find the bad in everything. We want to retrain it. So give it time. So do it every single day. Find one thing that you love about yourself or like about yourself more than you did yesterday, and one thing that lit you up, that brought you to a sense of joy, purpose, that sort of thing, because we're rewiring that brain. Okay, number 2, get creative. This is huge. Get creative. Try a small act of creativity that feels right to you. So if it's something that you've been really interested in, maybe you're on social media and something keeps popping up because you've searched it a few times, so it keeps popping up, something creative that you've got interest in, you'd like to try it. Who cares what everybody else says? I was told my entire life I wasn't creative. I was pathetic. I'm a writer. I'm an international best-selling author. I'm totally creative. If you're an INFJ, I guarantee that you're creative. So try it. Try something that feels right for you, that gets you into the flow. Purpose, ideas will often become clear when we're in flow. And flow, when you're in flow, if you don't know what I mean by that, it's when ideas start flowing into your brain. So think about, this often happens when we're not overthinking, which is very rare for an INFJ. For many people, we will get into flow in the shower because of, like, I think it's the sound of water that helps with that. But anyway, we're in the shower, we're enjoying the warm water, and we're just letting our brain wander. And that's when lots of ideas and thoughts will start coming, like good things. Going for a walk in nature will also help that. That's what getting into flow is. You get so many ideas flowing into you. Being creative will also spark that. You'll start getting ideas because we have our brain and it's focused on one task. Then we're doing it and pieces of our brain will start to wander. But it's still going to be linked to that task and it will start flowing in. And it's super cool. Have a pen and paper ready beside you and start jotting them down. Don't give them too much thought at the time. Just write them down as they come. The next thing, number 3, is practice saying no, which can be really scary and very hard for most INFJs. Practice saying no to the things that don't feel right, and you're allowed to do that. Give yourself permission to do that. It's okay. Purpose requires space for self-discovery. So if we're constantly saying yes to the things that we don't want to do and giving our space, our energy to other people and other things we don't want to do, we're not leaving any space for ourselves. So practice saying no, baby step it. Say no to small things first and work your way up. And eventually it will get easier and easier to say no. It doesn't come natural for an INFJ. It's a skill, which is a good thing. It's a good thing. That's good news because skills can be practiced and we can get good at it the more we practice. So baby step it. I hope this was helpful for you. Again, if you're interested in the virtual INFJ meet and greet to meet other INFJs, check out the link in the description of this video. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I would appreciate it. Thanks for joining and I'll see you soon with another video. Bye-bye for now.